Hi Yash, how are we? Seen some good interviews from yourself, Yash. So looking forward to much more. I'm just waiting for Susie to join the line so we can have a chat regarding Susie's New Zealand career. A few challenges that New Zealand cricket have faced with women's cricket, her basketball career with the New Zealand Olympic team, and much more. And to see what the future holds for cricket in New Zealand during this period as well. So just sit back, relax. If you have any questions for Susie, please feel free to write it on the comment section, and hopefully we can ask Susie at the end and see if she can answer. We're just waiting for her to join up, so shouldn't be too long. Good afternoon, Ahmed. I don't know if it's afternoon or morning there, but here in Sydney it's afternoon, so we have to Susie's joined, so let me just join her now. All right, just linking up. Hey Susie, how
Hi,
are we?
how are you?
Good, thank you. Is it afternoon or evening there? It's afternoon, isn't it? I think the reception. Yeah, got you.
Got me?
How are things going in New Zealand? I hear that you guys have started training.
Yeah, we've the last 3 weeks I've been able to get in the nets in Dunedin, so I've actually been really lucky because I was organising with the Otago cricket coaches, and the vaults coach Rob Walter just sort of invited me to join in with their skills program. So we're just everyone's sort of doing throwdowns, and I've sort of joined in with the boys, which has been really good. Otherwise, I would have been doing quite a bit of training on my own, so it's been good fun.
What is it about New Zealand? Everyone wants to move there. I mean, people across the Tasman also wants to move there. A beautiful place. Tell us about how things are going in lockdown. Have things eased up, or is there a second wave coming around?
Yeah, we've done a pretty good job. I think I came back from the UK and went into sort of isolation, and I'd seen how it was tracking over there, so was hoping we'd go into lockdown, and Jacinda Ardern put us into lockdown before it got too bad. So we were pretty lucky. I think it helps. We're an isolated sort of country, and you can only fly in, and we don't have the population as some of the other places that have struggled with it, so it's a bit easier to contain. But yeah, it's always been a beautiful place, even before dealing with COVID well. But I think it's just people love, the people are generally pretty friendly. We've got beautiful scenery, obviously not as dense a population. So I think if people want a bit more space, they love New Zealand. So yeah, I've enjoyed being out of lockdown now, that's for sure.
One of the main reasons I married a Kiwi as well, so
Good
got a
decision.
little bit of relationship in New Zealand. You played international cricket for 15 years or plus 15 years. What keeps you going? What has made or motivated you to keep going?
Well, the breaks definitely motivated me to keep going even longer. But yeah, I don't know. I've just, ever since I remember growing up, I loved sport. I had mum and dad were really keen on sport. My two brothers, Tom and Henry, played any sport they could in New Zealand, and I just followed them. And all I can remember is wanting to be playing sport on a Saturday and going to training after school. So I think that's probably at the core what keeps me going. Just I love being competitive, and I know once you finish, you're a long time retired from competitive sport. So I'm just pretty motivated to stay fit, and especially with where women's cricket's at the moment, I don't want to miss out on all the opportunities that there are, and there's some really exciting things. So that's motivation to be able to stay a part of all that.
Now, most people don't know, but you represented New Zealand in the Olympics as well. I think it was 2008. Was it 2008? I'm not sure. Yeah, 2008. You know, what was that experience like? And, is there anything from basketball that you took and implemented with your cricket?
Yeah, I think I was just really fortunate the era that I grew up in, because neither sports were fully professional in New Zealand, I was able to kind of balance the two of them. One was in the winter and one was in the summer, and it probably helped me enjoy my cricket much more because I got a break from it and went away and played basketball in the winter. And yeah, it was like anything. Watching TV growing up, I saw the Olympics and I used to get goosebumps listening to any athlete sing the national anthem. And as a keen sports person, I was just like, well, the Olympics is like the pinnacle. So when the opportunity sort of came about that the New Zealand women's basketball team could potentially qualify, I thought I have to give that a go because this was probably my one shot at going to Olympic Games. And yeah, it just all was just timing, a little bit of luck, a little bit of hard work and sacrificing my cricket for a bit, but it was definitely all worth it just to have that experience at an Olympics that has never happened again, but it was pretty cool.
One of the things, I guess, I won't call it shortcoming, but something that New Zealand hasn't achieved is winning a big tournament, whether it's the women's team or the men's team in terms of the World Cups. What do you think that the New Zealand cricket team need to do to, reach that pinnacle and, achieve that world glory again?
Yeah, it's been something that I've always wanted to achieve before I finish. And early on in my career, we made 3 World Cup finals and we finished second in all of those. One against Australia, which I remember vividly, in the West Indies at the 2010 World Cup, where we bowled them out for a low total. And I think just under pressure, situations, but when push comes to shove at a World Cup or
got some reception issues, I think. Yeah, we got it. Got you again, yeah.
Yeah. No, just saying, yeah, I think handling that pressure at pinnacle events and individuals in the team performing when it really counts is the one thing that we're still working on as a group. So I think it comes a little bit down to our mental skills as a team and just believing that we can perform at those pinnacle events.
I was just saying at the start before you came on, Suzie, that if anyone has any questions at the end, I'll push them forward to you and see if you can answer them.
No worries.
The other thing I was going to say, with 15 years of international cricket experience, I mean, things would have changed, players would have come and gone from the team. What are some of the differences that you see now that you didn't see at that time? And what are things that have stayed, that you have experienced?
Yeah, it's just the professionalization of the game is the biggest difference. When I started a long time ago, you played probably 2 or 3 months of the year, domestic cricket, a couple of international series, and you spent the rest of the time at home, either studying or working and, not training as much in the winter. Whereas nowadays, you see some of the girls coming into the squad, they've been able to train full time, and so the athleticism just naturally from doing more training. I think the fitness has improved dramatically. Girls are stronger when they first play international cricket, and it just makes probably a more athletic and exciting game. And 2020 cricket's really encouraged people to get fitter, faster, stronger, and obviously it helps when you're getting paid to do it, whereas when I first started it was just more of a hobby and people had other priorities and mortgages to pay with other jobs, so it made it difficult for them to play as long as I get to play now.
Talk about 2020 cricket, again, something that most people don't know, but you're the only cricketer, whether it's male or female, to have scored 3,000 T20 international runs. What is it about that format that, just clicks with you?
I think part of the reason is that I've probably played the most 2020s because I was around when it first started. I remember our first international game in England, and I think the natural way I played was to go after the bowling, especially when I was younger. So 2020 cricket really suited my natural style of play. So I sometimes struggled with 50 over cricket to take my time and bat time, whereas 2020 it was all about getting as many runs as you could quickly, and that suited me. So I think having been there from when it started and it suiting the type of game I've always played anyway was probably the keys to why I've been able to score a few runs and play for a long time.
I guess, um, you know, you've played for 15 years. You know, we talked about, things have changed for the good or, for the worse sometimes. What are some of your most favorite memories that you cherish in this career of yours?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd probably have to say the first ever 2020 World Cup final I was involved in at Lord's, and the semi-finals and finals we played before the men's games. And although it was a terrible performance from us in the final, I think we got rolled and I didn't get many runs. Just being a part of that first kind of big push for women's cricket on the global stage and playing at Lord's, every cricketer's dream, that was pretty special. Um, I think probably recently it's just been all the international competitions that have evolved, being part of the Kia Super League. Sadly, I was pretty excited to give this 100 ball game a go, but we haven't been able to do that because of COVID. The women's IPL starting up, and the women's Big Bash, and kind of being there for the inaugural seasons of all of those has been pretty special to sort of be a part of that next step for the women's game and see players from all around the world just improve drastically from being a part of those competitions. You know, the Indian players, Rodriguez, Mandana, just growing from strength to strength. And yeah, it's just awesome to be a part of.
You've just stated the Big Bash, the Women's Big Bash. You've been part of the Adelaide Strikers for some time now. What makes that tournament so special for women's cricket, and how has your experience been with that?
Yeah, it's been the best thing for my cricket, and I just get so excited when any New Zealander gets a chance to be a part of it. And I think probably Australia have, well, not probably, they've led the way in terms of professionalising the game, not only at international level but domestically, and they're really reaping the rewards for that, having 15 contracted players in their state that train full time. It just really lifts the whole standard of competition, and no other country has the ability to have that many professionals. So the fitness, the strength, the pace of all the bowlers, it's just really improved over the last 4 or 5 years because everyone wants to be a part of it. Everyone's pushing each other to get better. Cricket Australia promote it really well. You've got the best players in the world all playing it, and that just makes for a really good competition.
What are some of the challenges that New Zealand, cricket, especially in the women's area, have faced leading up to now? And what are some of the challenges that you're still facing with women's cricket?
Yeah, it's just probably the pure numbers in certain areas. Where I'm from in Dunedin, it's pretty cold down here, and I was born and bred here. But in terms of women's club cricket, we've never got a women's club competition up and running just because we haven't had the numbers. So I've had to play men's club cricket, whether it's been second grade, the odd appearance for the University Grange first grade team.
Nice.
And yeah, that's in lots of areas, probably other than Christchurch. Christchurch have had a strong club competition, and Auckland are starting to get a strong club competition. So yeah, it's just the ability to compete against people domestically and at club cricket being a challenge, and still is a challenge. And even now in Dunedin, I'm training with the boys because there's no other options. So it's hard to stay motivated when you are having to do it on your own quite a lot.
Do you take anything from the men's game? Playing with the men, like you mentioned, does it change your game much?
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes it's helpful and then other times it's not that helpful. There's a lot more pace on the ball, so you can use the pace, and even things like hitting behind square more often. And I enjoy having pace on the ball, so sometimes it's a challenge to go back when the spinners are a bit slower and I'm a bit early to everything, which I am anyway. But I think bowling, what I loved was if you missed, you generally got punished. But that's changed in the women's game too. There's now batters that if you don't put it in the right area, they'll put you out of the park. And yeah, it's just more just the numbers and the competitiveness of the boys at club level compared to the girls at this stage. But I've always found it helpful, and I love training with the boys and just asking, you know, especially their philosophy around 2020 cricket and, you know, what they're trying to do with bat and ball. I've always been really intrigued watching men's cricket, and the Volks boys down here are really generous with their advice, so it's nice.
Excellent. One of the questions that we regularly get asked, whether it's coaches or international players or, you know, people who are involved in the sport, is the term skills development. And, you know, with the game growing and changing so much over times, whether it's, you know, the pace of the game or pitches or, you know, conditions that you face all over the world, how do you keep up with it? And, you know, is there a certain way you approach things when you come to, or when you're faced with these type of conditions?
Yeah, it's a challenge because, you know, even training now indoors, you're on artificial surfaces and a lot more pace on the ball and you're playing off the back foot. But we've been pretty proactive recently. New Zealand Cricket, for example, have developed an indoor marquee. So during the winter months, they've put a massive marquee on the grass wickets, and they can sort of doctor the wickets to suit. So if, you know, the Black Caps or the White Ferns are going to the subcontinent, they try to dry them out and make them turn. And so we can train as specific as we can. I think there's no secret that New Zealand players going to the subcontinent and places like that where it's hot and it turns a lot. We're used to good pace and bounce and, you know, dealing with the swing movement. So it definitely, you have to change the way you train and prepare, because there's no point batting on fast bouncy wickets and then going over there and it being completely different. So as best we can, we sort of try to prepare pitches. It's more about the shots you might play, so a lot of sweeping, and then when we get there, just trying to talk about the conditions and trainings as soon as we get there and how we're going to play and adapt quickly. Doesn't always work though.
You know, you've played with some exciting young players coming through the system with New Zealand. You know, we hear a lot about Amelia Kerr here with the Heat, and you know, the great start she's made to her international career. But who are some of the other youngsters that we should keep an eye out on?
Yeah, no, she's definitely a superstar, and I've loved having her in the group because she's just as competitive as me and one of a kind in terms of, you know, she's just special what she can do with bat and ball. But we have got, she's not that young anymore, but I think Hayley Jensen hasn't quite, she did at the World Cup, but she's one of our most talented players, bat, ball, and in the field she can whack it hard. She's been in Australia for a bit and she's really matured, so she's one that I'm expecting big things from. I think we've got Rosemary Mayer, who's quite an exciting young fast bowler who's still sort of finding her feet in international cricket. And there are some young girls sort of age 15 or 16 that haven't quite made the White Ferns yet. We've got a young left arm spinner who I've played against, who plays for Auckland Hearts, and I think she'll be in the New Zealand side sooner rather than later, but she's probably just a bit young at the moment. I think on the batting front, I haven't seen too many at domestic level just yet that have set the world on fire, but I just think with the way the game's going, we're going to get some really exciting players come through the more exposure we get.
The World Cup, the T20 World Cup recently just passed in March this year, before COVID struck. We saw a big crowd at the final. Unfortunately for you guys, you didn't make it to the semis. Was it disappointing, firstly? And what do you think went wrong during that tournament?
Yeah, I think every World Cup, when we don't make the semi-finals, we see that as a failure. And we knew we had a tough pool, but we were well prepared playing Australia and India. And I think we actually bowled and fielded probably the best we have as a unit. Our bowlers really stepped up, but probably the story of our lives when push came to shove and we needed our top order to score 50 to win the game against Australia and India. We just sort of fell short and left too many runs for our middle to lower order, which they proved against India. They nearly got us across the line, but one of our top order had to be there and we would have won that game. So it's finding ways in those big moments for the top order to score runs. We did that in the 2017 World Cup too, when the big teams that came up to them, our top order sort of didn't fire, and that made it really difficult.
moving forward, Suzie, as well, there are some changes that's probably going to happen with cricket. What are you looking forward to most personally, and what do you feel like might not work, moving forward?
I just cannot wait to play a game again of any kind. It doesn't even matter what level. Like, yeah, I guess you get really busy and you play a lot of cricket, and you can sometimes take it for granted. And this is the first time. I've always loved playing, but this is the first time I've really missed it. And just yeah, that competition, being in the summer also helps. Yeah, but I think that first game for the White Ferns, whenever that happens, I feel like it's my debut again. It's really been a challenging time for everyone, and I think once sport gets back up and running, we'll feel really appreciative for what we have, and I think it's changed people's appreciation of what cricket provides, as an entertainment, but also just how exciting it is to be a part of. And when it gets taken away, you really appreciate that. So, yeah, my first bat, I'm probably going to be more nervous than I was on my debut, but I'll be hitting lots of balls indoors.
Who knows, it might be in the Women's World Cup next year in New Zealand. Exciting times for you guys there. How's the preparations coming along? Have you been involved much with it?
Yeah, I think this is the first opportunity we've had a really long winter with everyone in New Zealand. So with everyone playing overseas, you can get a little bit disconnected. So I think there's no excuse now. The number one thing is we're going to be fitter than ever, because that's the one thing we can control at the moment, the fitness work. And that's an area we identified as a group we could get better. But yeah, we've had a few Zoom meetings, and we do actually have a camp in July. Not the whole squad, we're split. So the North Island have a camp and the South Island have a camp. So that will be just really nice to get back together, and we're just really trying to stay connected and all make sure that we're ticking the boxes with our training, and we've got more time than we've ever had to prepare. So hopefully that puts us in a good place.
Suzie, you were the captain for the New Zealand women's cricket team for some time. I guess with captaincy, there's talk about leadership, and leadership is not just in sports. Leadership can be in any part of our lives. I guess for you, what makes a good leader, and how important is it to have a good leader, in terms of anything in life?
Yeah, it's massive to have someone to look up to who's going about the things in the right way that moves the team or the group forward. And I think when I first got asked to be captain, I didn't think I was quite ready, and I tried really hard to be what I thought a leader should be. And what I soon realized was that as soon as you're not being authentic, it makes it really difficult to lead. So you need someone that's been true to themselves, knows what they're about in terms of their own personal values, and then knows the team's values. And for me, it's all about living and breathing them. It's not about the talking you do, it's about leading by example. And I always tried to do that as a cricketer. And I think it was something Richie McCaw said, who was a very inspirational leader here. Just, you can never ask the team to do something that you aren't willing to do. And so that was always my way of leadership. And I think that helps in anything. As soon as you have someone just talking down at you or telling you how it should be done without doing it yourself, it does make it difficult to get players on board.
All the Indian fans who are joining us, if you don't know who Richie McCaw is, he was the captain of the New Zealand rugby team. And as we all know, New Zealand's rugby team are probably a benchmark of any sporting teams in terms of how they handle themselves and the success they've got on the field and off the field. I guess one final question, Suzie, for you before I start asking some not so formal questions is, with cricket moving forward, you aren't allowed to use saliva now on cricket ball. Do you think that will make any impact in terms of how the game will change, whether it will tilt towards the batting or the bowling or anything like that?
I think, yeah, it'll have a much bigger impact on the men's game than the women's game. Obviously, at the moment, with only one red ball cricket game in the women's Ashes, it's probably not as much of an impact on the white ball game. So, look, I think it may affect, in New Zealand, that's one of our strengths is the way we swing the ball. So potentially there may be less wickets taken, and it may be difficult to bowl teams out and get 20 wickets in a match. So it'll be interesting to see how Test cricket goes. But in terms of the women's game, it's more just the habit of putting saliva on the ball that I think people are going to struggle with initially, because that's just when you grow up playing cricket, that's just what you've always done. But I think it is probably a safe way to go about things, and just with everything that's going on, I don't think players will worry too much about the impact.
Yep. Thank you, Suzie. So I've got some rapid fire questions if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Of all the cricketers that you have played with, who is the funniest?
Alex Price. I hope she's not watching me, but she plays for the Strikers and she's a very funny girl.
She's the one who sings in the mic, isn't she?
Yeah, she's the entertainer, yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty funny. If you had to invite 3 people over for dinner, who would they be?
Michael Jordan, Sachin Tendulkar, and Nelson Mandela.
Wow, all males as well.
yeah. It's probably just a sign of when I grew up. That was probably more of what was on TV. Hopefully nowadays girls see female role models.
So you must have watched The Last Dance?
I did. I was really sad when it finished in lockdown, because that was keeping me entertained. So hopefully they'll do one of Sachin and the Indian men's team.
Yeah, exactly. What is one motto that you live by?
It's sort of one that I remember from a very young age, and my tennis coach, I played tennis growing up, and he always used to say, go hard or go home. And that's kind of stuck with me in terms of, if I'm going to turn up and do something, okay, might as well do it at 100%. Otherwise, I should have just stayed at home. So not just in cricket, but I'm like, go and do it properly or don't bother doing it.
You play tennis, you play basketball, you play cricket, any other sport that,
I played everything. Growing up, small town, you got dragged into everything, and I did give everything a go, which I loved, but just sort of worked out which ones I was better at. But I loved my basketball in particular.
Amazing. What is the worst or the best sledge you have received?
To be fair, I think because I don't really give it, I don't get a lot of it, because I feel, people pick their battles. I always find Alyssa Healy, it's not so much sledging, she just can be distracting behind the stumps, and you can get into a bit of a chat, and she's got quite a witty sense of humour, so she can rip you out a bit. So she's probably the best chirper behind the stumps. Like
father, like daughter, Alyssa Healy.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your most favourite movie?
I have a couple that are quite different, but I loved Shawshank Redemption, but Remember the Titans and Sister Act. I like singing, so Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg are 2 of my all-time favourites.
Excellent. Your favourite pastime habit that doesn't involve sports?
Probably reading. Like, I just always liked reading. I like going and reading books about anything. So that's probably
anything you're reading in particular at the moment?
I just finished the biography, Alicia Keys' autobiography. So I've always loved an autobiography, and I obviously read a lot of sports ones, but I do try and branch out. And I'm actually reading, just because of what's going on in the world, the Maya Angelou one at the moment.
Sure.
When the Caged Bird Sings. I know When the Caged Bird Sings. It's a book I've been meaning to read. I do like to try and educate myself, so I thought it was the right time to do that.
Nice. Your inspiration growing up?
My brothers first and foremost, but then there was this one female who was in Otago, and she played basketball and netball for New Zealand, and I remember my dad pointing her out to me at the stadium, and I thought, oh, that is so cool, she plays 2 sports for New Zealand. And so that to me was a huge inspiration, that I could do that if I wanted to. So that's pretty cool.
Excellent. 2 more questions before I go to the audience questions. One word that defines yourself?
I'd say competitive.
Yep. Who's the most
Anyway,
who would it be the most competitive cricketer you've played against?
probably Elise Perry.
Ellis Perry.
Yeah.
All right. One final question, not cricket related. Favorite place you have been to?
Oh. I went to Portugal last year, and I love the sun and the beach, and we were in a really sort of quiet area, so that's been one of my favorite holidays. But Central Otago in New Zealand, when I have to stay in New Zealand, is one of my favorite places to go and switch off and just be outdoors. So I've said two, sorry.
The South Island of New Zealand is amazing. So,
Yes,
anyone
it
who
is.
can visit, please go there. When the restrictions ease off. A lot of
Yeah.
congratulations from the audience saying, well done for New Zealand to defeat coronavirus. I don't know if defeats the word, but they've taken very good measures in terms of reducing the risk of spread. I guess one question here, Susie, is from I am Jemmy. And he says, sorry, ma'am, since New Zealand has already defeated Corona, when will cricket resume there, at least the domestic games?
Yeah, so nothing's set in concrete just with the way the world is at the moment, but they are looking to have camps for the Black Caps and White Ferns, so sort of July, August, September. And then if all going to plan, domestic cricket should be able to start in November. And at this stage, New Zealand are playing Australia at the end of September, but whether or not that can go ahead is still yet to be decided.
Yep. A question from Sky Lovett, who probably knows you. Have you jumped? Have you jumped in on Sophie's yoga sessions yet?
Yes, she does love her yoga. We haven't since lockdown. We've had a bit of a break from yoga, but I'm sure if she provides some, video yoga session, she has inspired me with her. We call her. She was our sort of like queen yogi. So some of us have jumped on board with the yoga.
Yep. A lot of love from the subcontinent for you, Susie. A lot of well wishes. Questions from Suhas. How do you handle pressure in tough situations, and how do you train for power hitting?
Oh, good question. I guess the pressure one. I was actually talking about with the coaches today because it's a really hard thing to train. Until you're out in the middle and feel the real pressure of a game situation. But for me, it's all about focusing on each ball at a time and not worrying about the past or worrying about the future. And we were just talking about staying present in every ball, and that's a lot easier said than done. But the more that you can practice being present and taking deep breaths and then just focusing on each ball, the better off you'll be. And no one ever masters that, but that's the goal, is to just be present with every ball. Power hitting, I think a little bit of that starts in the gym and just getting a little bit stronger and upper body strength. And then to practice that, I've had actually a specific power hitting coach in England, and they like to use medicine balls. So you hit weighted balls, but just making sure that you're really getting your hands back and hitting as long as you can, and actually trying to hit the ball as hard as you can and seeing what your technique does rather than just trying to nicely hit it, I think always helps.
Sure. A question from Rehan. Who's your actually, it's a question regarding who's your favorite male cricketer?
I have to say Kane Williamson. He's everyone's favourite cricketer, isn't he?
Yes, I think he's very much loved across the world, not just in New Zealand, because of the ambassador that he is as well. A question from Akash Chetty: what can we do on days off when our time, or on days when our timing is off?
Yeah, very good question. I think sometimes when you feel a little bit out of touch in the middle or out of form, as you go searching and you go harder and harder at the ball, and that's exactly what I do, and you try harder, whereas actually the key is playing the ball late as you can under your eyes. So actually being able to slow down and let the ball arrive is the key to timing, and that it's hard to do when you are struggling because the tendency is to get at the ball. But Kane does it very well. Play it really late under your eyes, let the ball arrive.
Question from Adit Bhattacharya. He's asking your favorite batsman in world women's cricket.
Well, when it's 2020 cricket, it would have to be Sophie Devine because she single-handedly has won super overs for the strikers, and I've never seen someone be able to hit sixes in the women's game so easily. In terms of just all-round, not in my own team, I really enjoy the way Beth Mooney's been batting in the last 12 months. She's not the most powerful player, but she's really smart, and she just looks to have total control of where she hits the ball, and she's so annoying to captain against.
Yeah. A question I have, Suzie, is, because we've had some strength and conditioning coaches on around the wicket talking about how the game's developed when it comes to working in the gym or, working out fitness. Is it also a big focus for women's cricket at the moment of how you go about in terms of preparation?
Yeah, I think the last probably 2 or 3 years, all high performance programs in England, Australia, India, New Zealand, there has been a focus on getting stronger and more powerful, getting faster. I think for fast bowlers in particular, it's working out how we can get the next female group of players to hit that 130 kilometre an hour mark. Sort of got girls sitting bowling at 120, but I think the next step is getting them stronger from a young age. Look, everyone's got different ideas and philosophies, and I've seen all of them over my years, but I think the key is to being able to get your body in a position that it can handle the load, and getting stronger and getting fitter is only going to help your cricket. However you do that, it's just committing to a program and following the process, just like anything.
Another shot-based question. How do you get an effective slog sweep?
Yeah, slog sweep is the one I find easier than the normal sweep. I think it starts with your front leg. You actually have to give yourself a little bit of room to access the ball. So just opening up slightly, and then you got to make sure that your stride's not too long. So you've got an open stance, and then it's all about your position of your hands. So if you want to hit it in the air for a slog sweep, you've sort of got to go from low to high. But giving yourself room with your leg just opening up slightly would be my key tip.
A question about Sophie Devine, if you can say something about Sophie Devine.
She is the hardest batter to bat with sometimes because she makes it look so easy. She hits sixes with absolute ease, but also just so exciting to watch. She's pretty competitive on the field, but she's one of the biggest larrikins off it, likes to joke around, doesn't take life too seriously, and she's been one of the players in the White Ferns that's just continuously challenged me to get better, and we've sort of helped each other and try to take the White Ferns team forward. So I've loved playing with her, and I've played with her a long time, so hopefully we've both got a few more years left in us. A
lot of people are asking how you're going as well. I think I asked at the start, but maybe those that are joining, you can answer that.
Yeah, no, I have enjoyed a break. I've travelled a lot, played a lot of cricket, so having the downtime and just some time at home with my family has been really nice to be able to reconnect with them. But I am desperate for some competition, so whatever that is. But yeah, I've tried golf, but it's just not the same. So I'm looking forward to some cricket, and if it lasts too much longer, I could go a little bit crazy, but we'll see.
Are you still going to be part of the striker setup for the coming years?
Yeah, I've got 1 more year on my current contract, so I've loved it there, and at this stage I'll be there this season, and then we'll see after that.
Question on Indian cricketers. Who's your favourite Indian female cricketer?
I'd probably say Smriti Mandana. I've played with her in IPL. She's a really grounded girl, and just left-handers. There's just something about them. They look beautiful when they hit the ball, and she's very talented.
Tell us something about the women's IPL.
I feel like this year is going to be the best year ever with 4 teams, I think. So it's been slowly building, but it is just the best thing to be a part of because as a overseas player, how much Indians love cricket, you can't match that anywhere else in the world. So the energy, the atmosphere, just the whole experience of playing cricket in India is something we don't experience anywhere else. So it's just really cool to be part of that kind of hype and hopefully see it grow into something really big.
And Suzie, this is again another question from myself. What can the game do in terms of developing the exposure of associate nation cricketers or cricket being played in countries like Netherlands or Vanuatu or Hong Kong? I mean, you were part of the Fair Break 11 in the last couple of years, so you've had experience with these cricketers and you know how talented they are, but what can be done to improve the game there?
Yeah, I think the men's game has done a really good job at exposing those players through the franchise competitions. So if you think of Afghanistan, Rashid Khan, having him being exposed all around the world and to Afghanistan players, they see a real future for their cricket, so that inspires them to be better, and that has a flow down effect. But then the following step is to provide cricket for that nation. So in the women's game, finding players from associate nations, getting them playing in the top competitions, and then growing the awareness of the game in their nation. Those games have to be on TV, obviously, to build that awareness. But I think we could do a bit more scouting of some players that are at the level to be part of those franchise teams, and then hopefully that grows the game in those places because they see the opportunities to be a professional, which is what's helped those players in those countries so far.
Hopefully once the pandemic finishes or subsides, the game can get back and start developing in those areas. Thank you so much, Suzie. I don't have any other questions from the audience, but thank you very, very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Venkat, for organizing this as well. Very nice to talk to you. All the best for your cricket coming forward whenever it starts off, and with the strikers next year, hopefully we'll see you in blue. And the World Cup that is coming along in New Zealand. So everyone keep a watch out. When cricket starts, we might be starting with the Women's World Cup. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It's been nice talking about cricket because I don't get to play much, so it's been nice. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Suzie. All the best.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you
Bye.
so much.